Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.
Hi folks, and welcome back to Through a Scottish Prism. I just lost vision there for a second. I don't know what happened. A wee technical glitch. I hope you can all hear me now. I hope you and yours are well. It's been a heck of a week in Scottish politics. So much to get through and so little time to get through in it. I'm quite certain that we will probably, as usual, overrun how things go. Phil, could I start with you this week just to say I'm getting fed up with here on Prism us being right all the time. And it happened again this week. The beginning of the week, on Tuesday, the SNP had a motion put through Holyrood where they demanding that Westminster devolve to the Parliament in Edinburgh the right to hold a Section 30 referendum at their wish and however they wanted. It took just 12 minutes, Phil, 12 minutes to do what we said for the last 5-6 years would happen. And the Stammer said, sling your hoot, jockos, get back in your box and shut up.
Yeah, that's the big story, major news. Yeah, we don't like saying told you so, but we've been doing it for 12 years. Well, not quite 12, but there's people I know that were suspicious of Nicola from the start and didn't trust her. I felt she was going to be the answer because Alec believed in her, and now Alec said said that she was the biggest mistake he made was handing the reins over. But anyway, what are we talking about here? A briefing on, if you go to the House of Commons library, which I use for a lot, still use for the public side of it now, for a lot of the information of what's going on in politics. So a briefing on Section 30 orders, what is it? It's secondary legislation made under the Scotland Act 1998 to increase or restrict temporarily or permanently the Scottish Parliament's legislative authority. Okay, so a Section 30 order is a type of subordinate or secondary legislation which is made under this act and it sets out modifications. What happened? It was used several times since 1999. The most high-profile example we all know was modification of Schedule 5 order in 2013, which temporarily devolved authority to legislate for a Scottish independence referendum. We all know it well, 18th September 2014. But this is the critical bit that we've been saying forever. A Section 30 order can be initiated either by the Scottish or UK governments, but requires approval by House of Commons, House of Lords and the Scottish Parliament before becoming law. So it's basically this much vaunted vow by John Traitorous Swinney was simply a letter from his mum asking if he could miss PE because he had a sore toe. It's pathetic. This is what the SNP become since Alec passed over the reins to Nicola, who also sold us out weak, apologistic puppets of the British state. Please, sir, may I have some more? It's Dickensian, it's appalling, and it's too late for me, for John Swinney, Angus Robertson, Humza, Nicola, it wasn't me, Sturgeon. They, along with the others who have had their snouts in the trough while the Scottish people suffer, still approaching 1 in 4 children in Scotland in poverty, around the same number of our youths, our people, do not see a positive future. And these apologists deserve to be politically terminated, in my view, all of them. Permanent. Get them out. They do not represent us. They're not fighting for us, and it's incumbent upon us to do so. And why so many independentistas failed to see the writing on the wall, flagged firstly by Wings Over Scotland publicly, but as I said earlier, I know a few who had reservations about Nicola from the start. Well, it's rapidly approaching 12 years since the independence referendum, and Nicola and her cabal, all of them, need removed. And for me, I cannot bear this servitude within a union of unequals. We've got to rise or be forever slaves. And the traitors like these current leaders and cronies of the Scottish Government need to be treated and prosecuted as such. And as you said, 12 minutes later, no, what's the plan B? Is there a question? Well, I searched online for that, Roddy. And the National said, this is a quote, and I'm going to read it directly. The SNP hasn't changed its independence strategy in any significant way. The resolution, supported by delegates to the party conference, alters nothing. Their message is still that we must give the SNP a mandate to demand a Section 30 order. After that, they have no plan. They have no idea what they will do if the response is a refusal, as it is almost certain to be. Yep, you were right too, National. We can only assume they will do what they've done on all previous occasions. Nothing. End of quote. Now that, if the National, which is owned by the Herald, which is there to kind of, but it's not even a proper paper, is
In-house
saying that.
magazine.
Exactly. So now we know this, and many of us have been saying it for years. Do they want to incite violence, the leadership of the SNP? If not, then why do they continue to treat the Scottish people with disdain? You're insulting us. You're insulting our intelligence, and more of us are waking up to this. So these traitors, final comment, must be ousted. When you meet them, folk, when you meet all these ministers, all of these trough snouters, tell them what you think. Make their pathetic lives a misery. That is the very least they deserve. But I will personally work, I know we will work towards the permanent removal of all of them from political life.
Not a bad idea. Ken,
Yeah.
I'm almost going to be rhetorical here, but were you surprised that within 12 minutes they had been told to sling a hook?
No, not in the slightest. Yeah, we told you so. Yeah, we said it so often. Yeah, it was going to happen. Of course, it was going to happen. We all knew it was going to happen. He still got his meeting to come with the Prime Minister, whoever that might be. It might not be Keir Starmer by the time he gets down the road. So he can ask him again in person, and he can be told in person, where to go. Absolutely inevitable. The point is, what is the plan B? There is no plan B. I was just, fun enough, speaking of the Nationals, I was looking at some quotes. These are John Swinney quotes. He was saying, we need to build up pressure on the UK government from a grassroots movement, was one. And yes, need to be working to create cohesion within the Yes movement, adding this has got to be a grassroots movement that forces the UK government to enable Scotland to decide on our own future. So what he's now doing is throwing it back to the movement that his party has basically ignored since 2014, and said, going to help us out here, lads, put some pressure on. Not quite sure how we're supposed to do that. It's just absolute nonsense. This is the guy who said vote 1 and 2 for the SNP, put everybody else down. Now he's turning around saying this has to be the grassroots that helps us out of this by putting pressure on Westminster. It's absolutely nonsensical. And still, at the end of the day, you don't have an actual system, because there's not Section 30, still hasn't come up with an alternative of how you actually physically get to independence. We know how to do it. He apparently doesn't. It's just more of the same nonsense. It really is. So now he wants the grassroots to put pressure on the people he's been putting down for donkey's years, while the SNP's been supposedly the Yes movement, and the rest of us, haven't counted. Now he wants us to do it for him. Pathetic.
Absolutely. Pathetic's the word to do it. Terry, you were standing in the campaign for the Alliance to Liberate Scotland. And throughout that campaign, you were saying, what we need to do is turn this into an independence plebiscite and unite the entire movement. And like all of the ATLS candidates, you were put down. You were told you were talking rubbish. You were told that John had the plan and that the Westminster couldn't, shouldn't, going to refuse it. And hey, you were right. Does that make you feel better?
I'm top of the world, Ma. Because I was right. No, it doesn't make me feel better. It makes me feel sick. Absolutely sick. And the SNP, plan B, I don't think they've ever had a plan A, let alone a plan B. But also, interestingly, you've got to remember that Nicola had a secret plan. Have you forgotten the secret plan? And she's passed that on to Johnny, Baldy Boy, and newer, even more Baldy Boy will be coming in to carry it on. We can hardly wait. It's going to be the same old, until we're all dead. and then we'll have all forgotten. We will be dead and gone. Hooray! Got rid of the annoying ones. Honest to God, it drives me literally round the twist. The nonsense I hear from the SNP supporters, the SNP 1 and 2 folk who keep on and on and on. I made a statement about the ring-fenced money, right? No, you're absolutely wrong there. That money is still there. He never stole that money. I said, well, he stole some bloody money, did he not? Yeah, but it wasn't the ring-fenced money. And not only that, all the SNP people are getting together and they're filling the coffers. How mental are they? They've been robbed blind. They've got this ring-fenced fund, so they say. Show me it. Let me see the money. And now they're putting more money in to this defunct government who cannot move a muscle towards independence because they don't bloody well want to. And that's it. The sum of it. They want to stay nice and cozy, feet under the fire, comfy slippers abounding, right? I'm going to go up to Holyrood with a big box of comfy slippers and just fling them at them. I've had enough. Really, please, could we not just start talking sense? Well, we try to. Some of us do, not me. You lot try to. I just talk at the top of my head. But we do try to talk sense. But the SNP do not talk sense. SNP 1 and 2 has been proved categorically to be the most ludicrous way of approaching our voting system. It's all nonsense. I say the Celtic Convention, come on, let's get in there. Let's get all us mad Celts up there shouting and bawling. That's my attitude. Thank you.
Let's see. You get the prize, Eva, here. John, when questioned after the 12-minute rejection, I mean, and can I just say to anyone out there who supports Scottish independence, who's still trying to say, oh no, Scotland's not a colony. And I was at a meeting with you, Eva. I don't think Phil was there. You and I were at a meeting about a year, 18 months ago, where a very prominent member of the independence movement was indignant about Scotland being referred to as a colony. Anyone that thinks now we're not a colony, you need to wake that up, as they say. But here, you get the prize. Here he is. I want your comments on this, Eva.
The Scottish Parliament, as expected, called on the UK government to devolve powers which would allow Holyrood to hold a second independence referendum. Within what we calculated as 12 minutes of that vote happening, the UK government rejected that call. I think what's important is that we don't in any way, shape or form let the UK government off the hook, because I'm very much aware of the swiftness with which the UK government issued their response. But that is not acceptable. It's not acceptable for the democratic wishes of the people of Scotland, either expressed in an election and then democratically by the Parliament, to just be dismissed in such a casual fashion. Well, what's essential here is that I think we've got to make it impossible for the UK government to refuse the ability of the Scottish Parliament to legislate on this question. So there's a whole host of things that have got to be done which will build up and strengthen that voice within Scotland about what needs to be done to make sure that Scotland can control our own future. It is crystal clear that this issue is not going to be resolved until the people are given the chance to determine on this question.
I mean, here's the thing. Don't let them off the hook. Eva, I maintain when they pushed both votes SNP 1-2, that was them letting them off the hook.
Totally, because as we've covered before, and Angus Brendan was particularly accurate and succinct about this. It was SNP 1 and 2 that let the unionists in.
Yeah.
But, Roddy, I kind of always go back to putting my professional head on. And this week I've been given an awful lot of free legal advice to folk, telling them to go and read the legislation, for example, in relation to what is expected of politicians and what is expected of political leaders and what the requirements of the Electoral Commission are. But while I've been doing that and looking at the framework of the law and considering, well, if Westminster says no to a Section 30. What can we do instead? While I've been doing that, looking at the legalities of it, I've also taken the time to look at this. And this is my version of the wee black book. It's a wee notebook that I got in 2020 and started writing up in 2021. And it is peppered with verbatim quotes from the greatest politician that Scotland has had in modern times, Alex Salmond. And it goes back to March 2021, prior to the launch of Alba. And I've got page after page after page of scribbled quotes from Alec, where he narrated and he enumerated and he set out very plainly where Scotland is, where Scotland has been, and where Scotland is going. And you can see, reading through this year after year, month after month, different forks in the road where there were opportunities for the SNP to do things, and where Alec predicted what they could do and he predicted what they would do. And the man was spot on every single time. And the vocabulary uses words like opportunity, seize the moment, now is the day. This is the strategy. We have to build momentum. We build unity. We've got purpose. The people need this. And, you know, I can hear him, you know, almost as if his hand's rising out of the grave as he goes to tell you something else. He'd be beside his cell with disappointment and hurt that there is absolutely no passion or power or determination behind John Swinney and the Scottish Government. And we've seen developments this week where, in essence, it's abundantly clear that behind the scenes, away from the camera, two bald men are fighting over a comb again. And the only real issue is which Baldy's going to be the leader within the next month or two, because clearly there are moves being made by and on behalf of Stephen Flynn to take over for John Swinney. Now, that won't make one iota of difference. It will not move the dial on Scottish independence. Not an inch, not a centimetre, not a millimetre, you know, nothing will change, because the strategy remains the same. We're going to go to Westminster because they can't say no. Now, this is where the level of genius within the Alliance Liberate Scotland Party becomes embarrassing, because we look like we know what we're talking about, because the other ones are so stupid that they can't think out of the box. And it's actually no difficult at all. What you do is you look at the available evidence and you assess the evidence and you figure out, what is it that I've got to do to get from A to B? Or again, in Angus Brendan McNeil's words, if you can't use plan A, then make damn sure that you didn't just have a plan B or a C or a D or an E or an F. You've got plans A to Z. And that's where the SNP are lacking, fundamentally because their issues are not about independence for Scotland. Their issues are about power for the SNP, retaining power, retaining position, retaining the status that they currently have. And I can't get my head around that, because I would go to my grave readily tomorrow if I could be the person that brought Scotland to independence, that had your name in lights for 1,000 years from now if you delivered it. And he can deliver it. He can deliver it tomorrow. Again, Angus Brendan, set it out. Collapse the Parliament and hold that vote. A democratic vote. A de facto plebiscite, a referendum, call it what the hell you will, because we are not moving towards UDI. We are not going to be independent in the absence of a vote. We don't have to go to Westminster and plead for their terms. We do what Alex Salmond said we should do. We collapse the Parliament. We have a vote. The people vote by a large majority for independence, and then we say to Westminster, the vote has occurred, it's democratic, there's the result, we've done it. All we need to do now is write out the terms of the settlement. So sit your backside down there and let's talk about what we're keeping and what you're having and how much you owe us. And by the way, see that stuff, those weapons of mass destruction on the Clyde, we're keeping them here until you get your act together. And once we're organised, we'll fire them up your Thames, because that's exactly where they're meant to be. And let's prioritise the needs of our nation. And, you know, use Alex Salmond's guile, his determination, his craft, his foxiness, his absolute love and dedication to our country. Use these words: credibility, strategy, confirmation, cataclysmic. You know, Scotland can stand on our own 2 feet. We stand on our merits. We've got a policy programme. We've got brains. You know, we've got, you know, I could go on here forever, but it's easy. We've not got Alec, but we've got his words, we've got his plans, we've got his proposals, and amongst us, between us, around us, we've got hundreds of thousands of people who are determined to see independence delivered. And the way we do it is we tell John Swinney, get off your backside, call the election, get it done. And this time, next month or the month after that, we'd be sitting there negotiating the terms of that settlement and raising, as Lloyd Quinnan used to say, raising that saltire at the United Nations between the flags of Saudi Arabia and Senegal. We wouldn't be dancing in the streets because we'd won the World Cup. We'd be dancing in the streets because we'd won the opportunity to shape our own destiny.
Well said. But we will be dancing in the streets because we win the World Cup. Convinced it. If only Brazil and Morocco get out of the way. The same week, just to rub salt into our wounds, when you won't give us a Section 30, but listen, we've got the highest electricity prices in the whole of Europe, probably some in the world. We should be controlling that, and we can bring the price down because we generate so much electricity. I don't know if it took them 12 minutes, Phil, but we got the same answer, didn't we? UK immediately rejects it. No, you can't have the power over energy. That's ours. So it just rubs it in. So as Eva says, here's a couple of plans. We could immediately collapse the Parliament. But why not? What we've been shouting about for years now on this particular podcast, certainly since 2020, Nicola Sturgeon said in Edinburgh, we're going to have a convention, a constitutional convention. So if they don't want to do it in one step, why doesn't the SNP call that what they promised us? Keith Brown promised us last year after the election, as did John Swinney, there would be a constitutional convention. And then we can come up with the ideas, the plans, bring everyone in the movement together. Surely that's another option.
These are all totally valid, and these are real plans. We talked earlier. Terry mentioned that there isn't even a plan A. Well, it isn't. It's a letter from your mum to get out of PE. That's what it is, and there isn't a plan B. And the despicable aspect of this, everything you've mentioned there, and there are others. The plebiscite being primary, in my view, methods of actually delivering our independence, taking our independence, because we're not going to get it. But the first thing you mentioned was energy, so let's talk about that one first. So what actually happened here? So Holyrood asks for energy to be devolved because the cap's going to be raised again. And guess what Westminster said was your question? Well, the clue, the second word was off. As you said yourself, Roddy, before the programme. And Holyrood had backs calls for a full energy powers from Westminster award to us. So please, sir, can we have some more all over again? That's their plan. That's their turn. That's what they turn to every time. So the Parliament votes, the Scottish Parliament, let's stop calling it Parliament. I think we need to revert to Big Council, because it was wisdom on Alex's part to change it but to the Scottish Parliament. And it was a good move because he turned it into a parliament. It's reverted to a joke. So this Big Council voted yes. MSPs backed an SNP motion calling for all energy powers to be devolved. You might as well just ask for a Section 30 because that's exactly what it is. So it was 70 votes in favour and 54 against in the Scottish Parliament. And that would have been, if it hadn't been for SNP 1 and 2, that would have been 96 or something like that votes in favour and a handful against, because the Unions wouldn't get in as much. But anyway, the parties were deeply split as usual, because even on this, even the subject of energy, you can't deal with it now, because the SNP and the Greens emphasise renewables and lower bills. The Tories and Reform stress oil and gas for jobs and energy security. And the answer is, we are in a bit of a dichotomy here, we're a bit of a quandary. What do we want? Do we want to use oil and gas? Because we do need to use it. It's sensible, like all the other smart countries like Norway. But we don't want the benefit going to the billionaires in London. So the idea, the SNP and Greens are doing us a favour by being ineffective and not doing anything here. The UK stands firm. Westminster is unlikely to agree, citing benefits of a Great British-wide energy system and using Holyrood to use current powers, urging Holyrood to use current powers effectively. That's what's going on there. That's what happens, okay? That's what happens. And we must not I mean, you just look at the headlines everywhere. The North Edinburgh News, right? A Tory, they came out with MSPs vote for transfer of energy powers, right? Scottish Government calls for energy powers to be devolved in Holyrood. SNP calls for energy powers devolution. We must not let decisions on the North Sea fall into SNP hands, warns a Tory in the Daily Mail. Now, again, the new energy minister is Stephen Gethin's energy minister. How can you be minister of a devolved power? You're an apologist. You're a letter from your mum writer. I know Stephen well, and I liked and respected him when he did his European Parliament stint, and I worked with him in the independence movement, and he's a decent man, or was. But every time I hear him back the Scottish Government, which he's now part of, he drops in my estimation. He's become another career politician. Or maybe it's just that I've cottoned on to it now. He's more interested in keeping his snout in the trough rather than freeing Scotland. Stephen, you're part of the problem. And as an SNP minister, you're in the front line. With extra benefits, double your money. So Minister for Energy, which is not and never will be devolved. We will only take control over energy when we can take control over our country, because it's worth billions to the UK government and the billionaire corporations and handlers of the politicians in Westminster who control our resources, the resources of the Scottish people. So, Stephen, you're pathetic. I'm sorry, but you are. And you may just make people angry with your attitude and your lies. You're lying to the Scottish people, and you know next to nothing about the energy solution Scotland needs, and you're an enemy of the people of Scotland, like the rest of the cabinet and the leadership of the SNP.
Well, of course, the thing about having a cabinet secretary's wages, it makes it easier to pay your internet bills. That's all I'm saying, without being bitchy. Ken, it just summed up, Section 30, no. Energy, no. That's the reason there's 750,000 people who supported the independence referendum in 2014 stayed at home, because they don't see anything that's enthusing them to get out there, because it's the same old, same old.
Yeah, well, it is exactly that. It is the same old, same old. This whole idea of devolving energy, what were they going to do with it? Never saw any kind of plan. Yeah, we want energy devolved, and this is what we're going to do. It wasn't. It was just, let's demand another power, which they knew they would never get. There's no way, as Phil said, there's no way in God's earth that the UK government would ever devolve energy to the Scottish Parliament, because it's something they rely on. They've been stealing us blind for years, as we know. They've got, with the new energy sources, the offshore wind, it's actually plugged straight in to the north of England. Just taking it all down south. They're never going to let energy go. It is just, again, it's more performative politics rather than, actual attempt to gain powers, which you actually have some idea what you do with. Because the SNP don't even have an energy policy. They don't. So it was a ludicrous thing to do in the first place. It is just purely performative. It will never, ever be devolved. That's just one thing they would never, ever devolved. And they know that. They must know that. The only way that we get to take charge of energy is through independence. And it's absolutely vital because energy is absolutely central to the economic future of this country, both oil and gas and renewables. And we have to take control of it. We have to have it working for the benefit of the Scottish people, and we have to be making revenue for it to help fund our public services. It's absolutely vital to the future of this country, but it's never ever going to be devolved.
No, it's, was it Paul that said devilish power retained, or power whatever it is? I can't remember the actual.
Yeah, power devolved is a power retained. Yeah,
exactly. So here's the thing, Terry. The SNP as well saying also give us we'll take control of the duty on whiskey and gin sales, etc. Why don't you send that up to us as well? They would be as well, because they get told to get stuffed as well. Yeah. We don't. Devolution's run its course, Terry. I would suggest that the Salmon government to 2014 took devolution to its max. We've got to step beyond that. We don't want more powers. We want all the powers.
Well, we can't step beyond it until we get rid of them. That's number one. They'll hold us there forever. I'm still laughing at the idea of the note being sent to Starmer about Swinney, and I had it in my head. Oh, I know what it would be. Dear Mr. Starmer, John can't make it this week for that meeting because he's got the skitters, and I'm very sorry about that. Or if we're being trans here, because we've got to add in a wee bit of trans, sorry, John can't make it this week because he's on his period. So the idea of them asking for anything is a joke. They know that they're always going to be turned down. And devolution is the way they've been devolutionists the whole time. Nicola was a devolutionist, still is. They're absolutely stuck in that bubble. They don't want the effort of getting us to independence because they'll have to bloody well think and act and do something instead of just sitting comfortably by and just carrying on doing their everyday jobs. Kirsten Oswald being, a nightmare in her own right. It really is just beyond thinking. Why do they continue with this bloody nonsense? And why do all these SNP supporters keep on saying, oh no, that was the right way to go. That was they've done well. And look at them, they're in there and they've done. I said, the people have shown that they're scunnered with the SNP. Oh, how do you make that out? I said, well, in the last election, 1.2 million of them voted for the SNP, and this time 870,000 of them voted. That's quite a drop. No, we still got the majority. No, you bloody well didn't. You didn't get as many as you thought you would. The people are getting scunnered. The more people who get scunnered, the better. The better, because then they'll start acting. We're stuck in stasis at the minute. It's not just devolution. We are stuck in a thing where we can't move because the SNP hold all the power, if you like, and they let all this nonsense in, and they divert things that are really important, like the energy. They divert it into trans issues, or this issue, or that issue, or some other bloody made-up issue, just to give them credence. Or we'll give gifts to everybody. Let's give everyone in the country that school bag and a bike. That's a great idea. Feed them. Give them a hope. Give us apprenticeships. Give them jobs. Give people a chance to bloody well get on in their lives and make energy free, because we actually could. Can you imagine it? No more frozen pensioners in their wee chairs. Right? I'm going to be one of them one of these days. Right? Enough. Stop talking through the hole in your head. Right? Stop doing it and start acting, because they don't. It's all like that. It's locked. They will not shift, and I'm sick of them. It's time for us to shift them. I think we can I think we can give them a wee laxative and shift them. That's what we should do. Every one of them. Come on, bend over. Finish. Can't do any more.
Some of them might like that, so let's not bother. Here's the thing, Eva, for the last few weeks, the British Labour Party in Scotland have been thumping their chest, telling lies, of course, that they were going to reduce, they've been reducing the energy bills, Labour's working for you. But what was announced this week before we asked for the devolving of energy was the fact that the energy bills are about to rise. Now they're blaming the impact of the Iran war. Now, I don't know how they can do that, because they were telling us it's linked to the price of the gas, which it shouldn't be, but they're just using it. They're not allowing the cap. We're now, although we're already paying the highest electricity prices in Europe or in the globe, we're about to pay even more as of April, so that the power companies will make even larger profits. They're getting profits in the billions.
You know what's really sad about Scotland's condition these days is that we speak often, and I alluded to it earlier, about Alex Salmond's abilities and the ability of our nation collectively, and about the brains that there are within Scotland, and how if we were working towards a common purpose, we'd transform Scotland overnight. And you'll see behind me, there's a mug. It's John McLean. How many children at school in Scotland today have even heard his name? And this is where we are. And, I don't like to get into the argument about, are we a colony or is it a voluntary union? Because I can see it both ways. And I don't really want to come out on one side or on the other. I want to see how the evidence plays out. But, the working class hero whose name should be on the lips of every Scot, because his principles and his ambitions were so precious and so enormous and transformational. And, if we had a John McLean sitting in Bute House, do you think he'd be writing a Section 30? He would be out there on the streets with his sleeves rolled up and demanding and telling folk, it's our oil, it's our gas, it's our wind, it's our wave power, and you lot have bled us and sucked us dry, and we're having not one moment more of it. And what's wrong in Scotland is, as an energy-rich nation, we've got rulers, or we've got managers or caretakers in Bute House or in Holyrood who simply plead with Westminster instead of getting them telt. So we can complain until the cows come home about energy prices, but for as long as we remain a devolved adjunct comprising North Britain, because we didn't have the spine or the guts to vote for independence on the popular vote, 3-4 weeks ago, then keep on greeting it, carry on your whining joke, get back in your box, because it's all you deserve. Now, I'm reminded, I was sitting there going through my book, looking at stuff I'd said to you about earlier, and what I found was, at the SNP conference last October, I had watched as the rebels moved their motion, and I noted down the words of several of their speeches, including particularly one from Derek Pretzwell. Now, these are good people within the SNP. I would imagine that these people voted SNP in the constituency, but for a different independent supporting party on the list. And this is the mentality that our movement requires to focus and develop, or focus on and develop, so that issues like energy prices are consigned to the dustbin of history, because an independent Scotland has a national energy company, it has a national house building company. We don't need food banks any longer. We don't need school clothing banks. We don't have to worry about pensioners that are going to be dying from hypothermia. We don't have to look at statistics that tell you about healthy life expectancy dropping. We don't need to look at numbers about how many people have emigrated out of Scotland because they don't have the opportunities. And there's none of this. But energy's at the top of that list at the moment. There's none of that we are going to do if we continue to be second-class citizens who are dictated to and managed and quelled by Westminster. So it is well past time that the people of Scotland who desire independence weren't just united with each other, no matter whether they're your friends, your allies, or you hate their guts. We should simply unite, get on the streets, and get them told we're taking our country back. And John Swinney, you're starting it tomorrow. You're beginning that process because you're going to call that de facto referendum. Get it done, and then let's build the country Scotland should be.
Indeed. James McLean. I'll tell you another name. Names that won't be on the lips of Scottish children would be like Andrew Hardy, John Baird and Jamie Wilson. That goes back, and I bet you the kids in Scotland don't know about the 1820 rebellion, which was again about giving voting rights to all men in Scotland. It was about getting a Scottish parliament. It was done during the austere austerity measures that were in place after the Napoleonic Wars. And those three names I mentioned to you, ladies and gentlemen, who led that rebellion in Scotland, mainly in Glasgow in 1820, were the British executed them because they could do that back then. They can't do that now. They can't. They would love to. You think, you know what? They would like to take us, the people you're looking at on this screen, they would execute us tomorrow. And anyone else that stood up for Scotland, now they're more subtle. They do things like what happened to Alec. They plant people who come in and tell lies, and they can control us now because they've got the media. We need to fight back. I'm not suggesting we need to fight back with physical violence, but we can't keep sitting and taking this, what they do to us all the time, and crushing us. Because there's, the kind of things that happen and they use to their advantage. And this week, Phil, the unions have been quick to jump onto something which actually really isn't any of their business. And I'm talking about, this is what happened. We know, everyone knows that Peter Murrell, the Mr. Sturgeon, if you prefer, the husband of Nicola Sturgeon, was done with only about 400. There was 600 and odd thousand, but they only managed to do them for 400,000. So I expect we'll never know where the other 200,000 went. And I would just like to say this to start with, before we get into the discussion of this, and how this all came about and how it was all hidden and internally. But the unionists, as usual, are jumping onto this. None of their bloody business. Do you think they care about the Scottish nationalists who contributed to that fund? They don't care. They're just using it as a stick to beat us. And there should be an investigation, but it should be an internal. And all those, Phil, who lied to the members, all those people who are in cabinet posts now and who are first ministers or who are ex-members of parliament who helped hide this theft from the ordinary members and the ordinary people of Scotland, they're the ones that should be getting pillared.
Absolutely. 100%. It sickens, but we knew it was coming. We saw it was coming, and there's a complicated aspect to this. Okay, let's go into the details. So, what did Peter Murrell plead guilty for, and why is it 400,000? I know probably Eve will be able to explain this better in one sense from a legal perspective. But Peter Murrell, in case you didn't know, the former chief executive of the SNP, pleaded guilty to embezzlement. Okay, embezzled over 400,000 from the party. That's what he pled on. Now, typically, if you steal up to the certain thresholds, but I'm going to that later. But the embezzlement occurred during his tenure as chief executive from 2010 to 2023. And he admitted to using the funds for personal purposes, including purchasing a motorhome and 2 cars. Nicola Sturgeon, Murrell's estranged wife, expressed her feelings of betrayal and distress over the incident, stating that she had no knowledge of the embezzlement at that time. Murrell was remanded into custody and will face sentencing on June 23rd. Later this year. Now, what's been happening? Well, SNP and Sturgeon refused to answer any questions or take any responsibility for this. So, I mean, where do you go for here? Well, firstly, John Swinney's been accused of trying to shut down scrutiny, as he again rejected calls for a Holyrood inquiry, what you said, Roddy, to be established into Peter Murrell's crimes. Sturgeon denies any knowledge of items her husband bought with the embezzled 400,000. What, there's a camper van sitting in your driveway, hen? You just go into the...
Oh, that's your mother-in-law's driveway.
Well, mother-in-law, yeah, but exactly, but...
There's a Jaguar pulled up to the door. I mean, if you pulled up... If I pulled up to my wife with a Jaguar, she might say, Roddy, I know
Ah.
what your pension is. How did you get that?
Where'd you get that? Exactly. And she denied any knowledge or
Of course.
suspicion of items her estranged husband bought after he admitted the embezzlement of, it was £400,310.65 from the SNP. Now, what he also went on to say, what he also did was he used the funds to buy items including lots of luxury goods and a motorhome, and towards the purchase of 2 cars between August 2010 and October 22. A top police officer said Murrell, who's 61, diverted the cash from the SNP to bankroll the lavish lifestyle he craved but could not afford. You're not going to notice that? Well, there's a lot being said. So Nicola and Peter were in a marriage of sorts, right? Well, an arrangement was made that suited both, but they lived in the same house. So the gold-plated salt and pepper shaker, Nicola, of course she knew, but obviously she felt it safe enough. And this for me should lead people to the answer as to why this is all going on and why there will be no meaningful investigation into this. It's very simply this. The answer here, why she felt safe and why they felt they were okay to do this, is that she, Nicola Sturgeon, and the rest of the cabal are being protected by the British state as long as they continue to be the major obstacle to Scottish independence. That's how the British state works. That's how politics at the highest level works. That's how international affairs operate. And if you don't understand that, you're naive beyond anything I could explain to you. It's crazy.
Here's the thing, Ken. Poor Nicola. I mean, this was all about Nicola, and she said, and I quote, "This has probably been the worst week of my life. And you know, the last few years I've had some tough ones for me. But this one, I think, surpasses all of them." Oh, I'm nearly greeting here. "It really is painful truth to process, and I think I'm only in the very early stages of processing it." Oh, Hen, my heart bleeds for you. "And then to be in a position of such public turmoil makes that even harder." Oh, no, a dry eye in the house. Nicola Sturgeon, that's what she said. "It's all about me and I'm a victim." Really? Really? Ken, she a victim?
No, she's complicit. She started off, I think she made a statement and said, "I'm not going to say any more about it." I think that was about 4 or 5 statements ago.
Aye.
This pleading the victim stuff is just utterly nonsensical. It really is. She is complicit in this. Even if you accept the idea that, you know, she never visited her mother-in-law, so she never saw the camper van, if that's true, or noticed the new cars, or the fact that her husband had just given her a 700 quid designer bag to carry about and all this. Even if you accept all that, just look at the actual process and what happened.
I've lost Ken. Was it me?
Oh, Ken, you're on mute.
You've hit your mute button, Ken. Or I panicked there. I thought I'd done something.
So, no, sorry. So where had I got to?
I don't know, I panicked there. You were saying if we were to believe that she hadn't seen stuff like the salt cellars, etc.
Yeah, so I mean, if you put that to one side, what you've got to look at is what was happening within the party. Mm-hmm. Now, this whole idea of her saying, "No, everything's fine, it's all okay," it's just nonsensical. I mean, if you take particularly the position when all the people in the NEC who'd come in and the finance people all resigned because they weren't being allowed to look at the books. She didn't say to Peter, the finance committee guys, they've all just resigned. Should they not be able to see the things they're supposed to be, looking after for? She never mentioned that to him. She didn't think there was anything at all suspicious in that. It's just
allegedly.
It's just not credible at all. And all the other people who are involved in it, we mentioned some of the senior party members. The senior party members, they didn't say, "Hang on a minute, what's going on here?" They just all said, "No, Nicola says it's okay," and they all walked away. Well, they're culpable as well. Everywhere you look, what about the auditors? What were they doing? What about Colin Beattie? How did he possibly, sign off these accounts? It's just, none of it is credible. But Nicola's part in it, which is what we're talking about here, it's not credible at all, the way she acted. And now all this playing the victim stuff, I think, is just absolutely dreadful. It's funny enough, I can't remember, was it Terry was talking about someone who'd been on an Antarctic cruise. Funny enough, I was thinking earlier on, the best thing she could have done was got herself on an Antarctic cruise and disappear for 3 months. But now she's moaning because, like the TV cameras are falling about and she's having to run away and avoid questions. It's just ridiculous. But it's only one part of the number of people who are culpable in this whole process, who've not been brought to book. I think there's still a lot more could come out. Even the other thing, just before I move on, is I think it was Keith Brown, actually, after Douglas Chapman had resigned, he actually put together a report on this and recommended that they should have, I think that's it, monthly reports on what should happen, and backed up by bank statements and all this sort of thing. And it was just totally ignored. So of course she's culpable. Of course she is.
Yeah, but here's the thing, when it was going on, as Ken alluded to, Terry, when Douglas Chapman chucked it in, Joanna Cherry warned everyone that they could be jointly liable on the NEC for any debts that were incurred. Poor Nicola, who wasn't involved, who's suffering, put out this video, which was not meant for public consumption, but out it came anyway.
The party's never been in a stronger financial position than it is right now, and that's a reflection of our strength and our membership. So just a bit of context for us all to remember. Secondly, I'm not going to get into the details. That's for Douglas. That's what he's elected to do. And of course, this body is the governing body of the party. But, just be very careful, all of us, about suggestions that there are problems with the party's finances, because we depend on donors to donate. There are no reasons for people to be concerned about the party's finances.
Yeah, donors to donate so we can get $2,000.
It's hard to rely on donors to donate, let's face it. But this week has been so many wonderful moments that have had me creased with laughter. We had John Swinney being asked by a reporter, can you comment, please, on why Nicola Sturgeon, being interviewed for several hours, stayed quiet through the whole thing, said no comment. And he said, I have no comment to make on that. I nearly, ruptured myself. And then we have Nicola saying that she knew nothing about this, nothing about it. She'd never seen any of this sort of thing. She'd never even been in her kitchen. And there's a picture of her standing beside one of the coffee machines that Murrell bought with the money. And the best one, look at that's one of the coffee machines. I know how much those bloody things cost, right? But the best one for me was when she said she was being interviewed by kids, right? And they were asking her about shopping and stuff like that. And, what did she notice that things had gone up in price? And she said, and I quote, "Oh, that's not up to me. My husband does most of the shopping." That was it. That was the final straw for me. I spent the whole afternoon in tears of laughter. The lies that have come out, but the best moment of the whole thing this week was Alan Smith being eviscerated by the audience on question time. Oh, Jesus, the joy of that was palpable, especially when that swine had me in tears all these years ago when he said, "Leave the light on." I'm like, oh, so good. Right now, I'm like, yeah, want to kill him. I can't believe the difference. I used to worship Nicola Sturgeon. I'm going to lie down now because I'll have to, because I said that out loud. But I did. I thought she was absolutely wonderful. What a wonderful person. Didn't he do well given? And how noble of Alec to give up his job. That's so noble. And to give it to Nicola, a woman leading the party. Things will be great now. We've got a woman leading the party. Jesus Christ almighty. What a bloody mistake that was. What and what a woman. And she loved that man. She loved that man. She said it. I loved him so much. I'm thinking, how could you? He looks like a dumpling. What are you on about? You loved him that much. He looks like a clooty dumpling. But then again, she's not that much better herself now. I'm sorry about that. Didn't mean to say that out loud. That was bitchy. But I'm going to say it again. Have you seen the state of her recently? But anyway, it's all this greeting. It's all, oh, poor us. And we're the victims. People in the SNP are going, we're the victims. Alan Smith said he's a victim. He's a victim. He's the man who introduced his wee boyfriend in to do the trans inclusion education in schools. That's how much of a victim that person is. Stop yourself from saying bad words, Terry, and getting arrested. Right. But the whole thing is that the SNP should have just taken this straight on and said, we are really sorry, we messed up. We are so sorry. We are sorry to the Scottish public for what's happened here. How can we fix this? How can we make it better? We are so sorry. You have to own up to your mistakes, and their mistakes have been immense. But the best way they could make up for their mistakes, and we all know what it is, close down Parliament and let's have a proper election. That's how we could fix it. There's no coming back from this. They're dead in the water. The unionists will carry on with this till the end of time. I'm going to carry on with it till the end of time, never mind the unionists. I'll be like this when I'm 97. And do you remember that time? Seriously, I've never been in the kitchen. What a lazy bitch. Never been in the kitchen, never done the shopping. What sort of person is that? What kind of woman is that? A woman who knows what a man is, though, eh? Evil.
Well, that's the question. She's a person who says she can't define a woman, Eva. But when it suits her, she becomes a feminist to her fingertips. And here's the one she came out with I thought was a belter. I should not be held responsible for the wrongdoing of men. Have you ever heard such hypocrisy and double standards in your life, Eva?
I think that you can imagine just how much I'm enjoying this. Relish is not a strong enough term, and I would just ever so gently tender even more.
Not concerned about the party's finances. The finances of the SNP are independently audited. Our accounts are sent to the Electoral Commission and
Sorry, that was by mistake. Sorry.
Oh no, that only amplifies what I'm about to say. As some viewers and everybody here knows, I'm the treasurer of the Alliance to Liberate Scotland. So I know what's coming in and I know what's going out. And regularly, several times a week, I send the other members of the executive of the Alliance to Liberate Scotland the bank statements. And it shows where the money's come from and it shows where the money's going out to. And I do that because I would do it anyway, but I do it because it is a requirement of an Act of Parliament, which Nicola Sturgeon, as a former lawyer and a party leader, former party leader, is deemed to have read. And it's the Political Parties, Elections and Referendums Act of 2000, and it sets out plainly what the duties of a party leader are, and it also says in very easy to read words of one syllable that when there is no party treasurer, which there wasn't when, there you've got it there, Douglas Chapman resigned, there was no treasurer, and the leader of the party becomes the treasurer by default. So there was a period of about a month or so when not only was Nicola Sturgeon the party leader and the First Minister, she was also the acting treasurer. And her job was to know what was coming in and what was going out. And to put the icing on the cake, a wee cherry on the top, maybe cherry's the right word here, is that when Nicola was recorded on that video at a meeting of the NEC, she gave cast iron guarantees that the financial circumstances of the party were positive and good and healthy. Well, we now know that at that time they were not such. So either she investigated using her world-renowned forensic skills, and she made up what she was saying because she didn't understand the books, or she was economic with the truth. She can't have it any other way. She said everything in the garden was rosy, and it wasn't. So she's got very many serious questions to answer, and I would just almost cut off my other leg for the opportunity to have her in that witness box for 5 minutes. And I'll just give you a wee example about how lonely it is in the witness box. It's the loneliest place on the planet because you're there by yourself. You've either sworn an oath or you've affirmed that your evidence will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Difficult for her.
And when you're there, you can't look back on a press release. You can't look at your notes or your notebooks or your emails or your WhatsApp messages, whether they're deleted or not. You've got to speak from memory, but your memory is allowed to be jogged. So a lawyer cross-examining Miss Sturgeon, when she's in that witness box, would be at liberty to play that video to her and ask for her comment on it. They'd be at liberty to produce written information to her and ask for comment on it. And they would be able to say to her, there you are in the witness box now, you've sworn an oath or you've affirmed that you're going to tell the truth. Why was it that Douglas Chapman resigned? Why was it that you had a Good Guys campaign? Why was it that several members of the NEC jacked it? What was that all about? You're not getting to storm out of the room. You're not getting to hide in the kitchen. You're going to sit there in that witness box till kingdom come, if necessary, to make you answer the questions that the people are entitled to have answers to. And you know what I did the other night, Roddy? I couldn't do it properly. But, obviously I was a member of the SNP. I was an SNP councillor. I gave them shitloads of money over the years. So I went through my bank account to see just how much I had donated. And actually, I could only go back to 2019. So I only covered the period from 2019 to 2021. And I was paying them money every month. And then I thought, I could afford that. It doesn't make any odds to my life. I never gave them so much money that it jeopardised, my own ability to look after myself or whatever, because I had a good income. But I was thinking about my mum. My mum is 84 years old. She was a member of the SNP for, Christ knows, 40 odd, 50 years. She was a pensioner. And she was paying them something like £5 a month for her membership because she believed in the cause. She believed in independence. How many folk like my mum, how many 84-year-old pensioners can say the self-same thing and they now turn on the telly and they're worrying about a gas bill and they're worrying about their message bill. They're wondering if, how many bonus points have they got on their cooperative card when they go to get their messages. And they gave money to the likes of her, who is now refusing to answer the questions that are on everybody's lips. And, go back to this. Look at the evidence. Look at the evidence. The evidence is there's a legal framework she had to comply with. It does not appear that compliance was in her particular bibliography. It certainly wasn't apparently in her code of conduct. But where we are now, when, it gets hot in the kitchen, what do? You run away and hide in your library and you surround yourself with your books and you look at your bookcase, which also appears on the list of purloined goods. So, the best thing she can do is have a retreat. Sorry, Angus Brendan McNeil, but maybe she would be well advised to spend 6 months on Barra or Jura or Rassay. Get her the hell away from the publicity and the television screens, because I think most of Scotland, if not the world, are sick looking at that face and listen to the gurning whining complaints about poor me, when it should be looking at the wider picture about how she and those around her ruined our movement and shafted our country.
Yeah.
100. But if I can chuck in just a quick point, a wee cherry on it, because looking at this, what's critical here is they have destroyed and discombobulated the independence movement. But another issue from Ken and Eva's points is that the complicity won't come out. The full list of who did what and who knew won't come out. Why? Point I made earlier, because now the UK establishment, MI5, the police, 77th Brigade, have got much, much more leverage on the SNP management team and leadership team than they ever had before. It's up to us to remove them. And Alan Smith, that was mentioned earlier, he's a joke. He's compromised, and he's complicit in the betrayal of Scotland like all the rest of them.
Yeah, but the other thing I was going to say before you interrupted me was that she's lucky, Eva, that he pled guilty, so she didn't have to go into the witness box. And I can say this, you can call me a conspiracy theorist if you like. He took the fall. She didn't need to go into the witness box. Colin Beattie didn't go into the witness box, and so they get away with it. That's the actual thing. And I should also say, Eva's pointed out, she is the treasurer of Alliance to Liberate Scotland. That's true. But I want to say it here publicly for everyone to listen to. She and Matt are talking about buying a new motorhome. I can assure you there's not enough money the Alliance to Liberate Scotland. If they do, it's going to be a hell of a cheap looking bloody. It'll be worse than the one that they're trading in. But just so you know. But that's the thing that gets me, Ken, is that I don't understand. And I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a policeman, but I think I could be a better policeman. And I think it must have been the same policeman that were investigating the leak to the Daily Record from Nicola Sturgeon's office, because it seems to me that she was. Here's one point when she was currying, looking for money for the ring-fenced donations. She was asking for donations, and I mean, I think I'd have turned around at my special and going, wait a minute, I was asking for money. Where is it? You'd be asking what's going on. It's just quite incredible that she wasn't in the dock with them. I can't figure that out, because she told people don't ask questions. It's unbelievable. We've either got a corrupt police force or a corrupt Crown Office, in my opinion.
Well, that's always been my concern. I don't trust the Crown Office at all. And you can go back to what happened with Alec as well. When we're talking about that, I don't trust them. We don't know what was passed between the police. We don't know what the report was they sent to the Crown Office. We have heard inadvertently that some police felt that in fact they had enough of a case, but it didn't happen. But as Phil said, one of the big benefits to everyone involved in this is the fact that Murrell pled guilty. So we didn't get the rest of them in the dock, or not necessarily the dock, I should say in the witness box, to answer questions. So they have got away with the scrutiny that we should have had, that people should have had to find out what happened.
Nicola, can you understand?
Sorry, did we lose something there?
I don't know what's going on. If I move my cursor at all, things just suddenly jump up.
Okay, we're still here. I thought it was me again. That's fine. I mean, I just don't trust the system. I think our institutions are a real concern, institutions which we always relied on. Now people they don't trust the police. They don't trust the Crown Office. They certainly don't trust our politicians. They don't trust our media. It's right across the board, isn't it? It really is. You can't trust what's going on, and I think it's. I see one of the problems with him pleading guilty is we never got to listen to other witnesses, having Nicola and Colin Beattie and whoever else in the witness box and being questioned in the way which Eva was talking about. I'd love to see Eva cross-examining these people, but it didn't happen. So we are where we are. Everybody's compromised. I think the SNP's compromised, and I think it was the last time I was on the broadcast. I don't see anyone within or any grouping within that party who's going to take over from those that are there at the top just now and turn it back into a proper independence party. I think it really is a pull them down and start from scratch job. I don't see any other way.
Yep, and I was someone who joined the SNP in 1968 and didn't leave till 2020. Yeah. I've got to say, I agree with you. It breaks my heart, breaks my heart. It angers me what they did to the party that I was in.
Absolutely. I mean, people are getting absolutely mad about it, and so they should.
Yeah, it is. But here's the thing, Terry, and we're running out of time. I just want to get this bit in, is that John Swinney, we know during the Alex Salmon, was the Mr. Redact pen. He redacted everything. He was him and all the others, and Ian Blackford, who's now saying, oh, it's terrible that, you know, people were silenced. He was part of the people silencing them. They were silencing. So John Swinney was quite rightly asked his opinion on this. This hypocrisy, this made me angry.
What I'm thinking about, I've not been able to stop thinking about, is the decent people who have stood with me at coffee mornings and jumble sales and thrift shops, raising the money, paying their money to party headquarters, paying their memberships. People who I know who don't have much money to rub together but have paid their membership subs to keep the SNP afloat because they believe in independence. So how am I feeling, David? That's how I'm feeling too.
Because he was part of the people that attacked people like us who were asking questions about the money. He was as guilty as any of them for shutting us down, and now he's pretending, oh, I'm so upset about it. A hypocrite on steroids, Terry.
He's a poor wee soul. It's the diarrhea, you know, that's what's caused it. He's a poor wee soul. It's beyond acceptance, it's beyond endurance, it's beyond everything that is above board. They are liars and cheats, and they collude together. They have an upper level that tells them what to do, and they do it. They don't ask, they just do it because they know that's the only way they can stay in. Murrell, as far as I know, pled guilty. I think it was a deal that was done. If he pled guilty, it gets everybody else off, and he would get a smaller sentence and, you know, maybe a pal to go with them to jail or something. Who knows what it was, right? But there are deals being done, deals on deals and deals and deals. And Swinney is king of redact. Swinney is the worst First Minister we've had. Look at his results. There's a wee graph that I put up the other day, and it shows you Swinney crap, Alec fantastic, Nicola not so much, but still up there. Nicola a wee bit less, not so much. Swinney back down. The people don't even like him. He doesn't come up. He's just a big man that stands there and talks keech, basically. That's it. Unadulterated keech. To accommodate the cult of the SNP, because that's what I believe they now are. I spoke to someone who left the SNP recently, and she said she didn't realise until she left that she was a member of a cult, and that stuck in my head. I couldn't believe it. I thought, that's a person who was there, right in there, and is now saying that. They are a cult. I listened to them reacting to the fact that the SNP have failed again, and they're like, oh, the next time there'll be a de facto independence next time. There'll be this next time. There's always something next time. Or that Gordon McIntyre Kemp told them it's all going to happen for the Westminster election. Why are we sending anybody to Westminster? Why are we not doing a Sinn Féin thing and going down there and just shouting at them and walking away?
I'm with you in that.
I hate all this. It's time for Scotland to stop messing around, kidding themselves on that they've got a functioning government, a functioning parliament, because they don't. It's filled with weirdos and folk that just want exactly what they've had all this time. There's nobody pushing for anything. It's time. It's time for all of us to get the finger out and do something. And that's it. Full stop. Swinney, get him out. But don't put Flynn in. Don't put any of these geezers in.
Our man Flynn. It's the clock's beating us. We could have done this. We could do on this Nicola Sturgeon absolute disgrace.
We could
and
do
what's
it
going on.
forever, even.
We could be
We
doing
are
it for
planning
hours.
on doing it forever.
But I would like to leave on a happy note, as we've mentioned on here, we're going to win the World Cup. But this week, I just want to mention this. You'll notice that they brought out a £20 note. I'm enraged about this, with showing the picture of McTominay's overhead kick. That was at least worthy of a £100 note. Never mind a £20 note. But well done, Mr. McTominay, and all the lads. And this is getting recorded on Saturday, folks. And I'm just getting ready to shoot out the door because I found a pub in Poland that's showing the Scotland game, and I'm away to watch the lads, hopefully cracking a few goals in. And until we see you and yours, please take care. Bye, everyone.
Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.